They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony.
Hello, my name is Diana Newman, and I'm here to share my testimony about my journey in the world of music. I actually, just to give you a little more of my background, I was born in the U.S. Virgin Islands and to a single parent home, even though my grandma and my grandfather played a big role in my life. And I was born Catholic. And growing up, you know, I loved music. I was exposed to different types of music. And in the islands, they had the calypso, which I didn't really care about too much. Reggae, which I really didn't like as much, but my thing was more the American pop music. I really had a take for that. That was just my taste as a child. And especially in high school, I used to listen to a lot of music. But before I got to high school, my mom, as well as myself and my sister and my grandparents, my grandmother mainly, we became Adventists in my younger childhood days. So by the time I became a teenager, even though we were Seventh-day Adventists, I did not know or understand. Even though I had an idea it was bad, we didn't listen to reggae and calypso, so that was considered bad. But I had a take for, there was certain music that was islandish, but I didn't see as, you know, take it as bad. I didn't interpret it as being bad because I really liked it, so I just kind of accepted it as something I would listen to. But I know you could not bring that type of music into the church setting that I attended as a Seventh-day Adventist growing up. So we will listen to it outside of church, but we knew certain songs or even certain rhythms you just don't play in church. You just did not use that in church for music. By the time I got to high school, I was so consumed with music. I was in about 4 or 5 different musical projects almost every year, different places that I'll attend. I did theater work. I was in the international choir there on the island that sang for major occasions, government, different government events, and touring the islands. So I sang in that group, the inspirational singers, and I think I was the only high school student in that. I was in West Siding Company, which was another theater group. I was in the Islanders, which was a major singing group that was sponsored by the, I guess, on that particular island center, which was like the civic center of the island. I was in that. Was in the drama team at school. Just a whole lot of things that involved music, because that was just my life. I just loved music. And as I got older, got to a senior in high school, I just decided that's what I want to do. I want to study music when I go to college. I could not see myself doing anything else. I did not want to be in anybody's office counting numbers, writing on papers. I just want to do music and sing. So this is, you know, that's the choice I made. And I had an experience when I was in church. I think we had like 2 weeks of graduating from high school. And at that time I was going to a public high school, even though there was an Adventist high school on the island. And me and a few of my friends, which we had a trio going, we sang. We were actually singing for a prom. Was it the prom or class night? Yeah, we had to sing a trio for class night. And they had a church had back then, it was called Envy. I think it was something volunteers, missionary volunteer, is what today we call AYS. And there was a program, and they had all this graduating high school graduating seniors on a panel to just ask us about what we're planning to do for our future. So I was sitting on the panel, and for some reason I knew they would not like what I was choosing to do, but I wasn't going to lie. Anyhow, everybody said, oh, I want to be a nurse, or I want to be a teacher, I want to be this and that. And I said, well, I'm studying music. And sure enough, the comments came up. Just one man, one teacher, I won't mention his name. He might still be alive today. I don't want to put him out there negatively. But he got up and was like, oh, called my friend name and said, well, you're doing nursing, this is wonderful, and you're planning to study this, oh great, and you're going to do computers, wonderful. He was just commending everybody on the panel about the major that they were going to choose, or they had chosen to do once they got to college. And then when he got to me, he was like, music, what you gonna do with that? So, you know, and he just put me down and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I have to live with it, not you. And I know what I like to do. But anyhow, I can't remember. I think I had ended up saying something like what he wanted to hear, because I was basically, I don't know if it's mortified by what he said. So I just kind of like, yeah. I know I did say I wanted minor in computers, major in music. So he was like, I need to switch that around. I was like, I can't remember if I had agreed with him or not, just to get him off my back and stop humiliating me in front of the whole church. But anyhow, needless to say, when I got to Oakwood College back then, now university, my major was music. So that's what I chose to study, and I minored in communication. I did computers for one term, just to say I made an attempt to try to be true to what I said. I did not like it. So I just minored in communication. I did what I know I like and I could live with it. So that was what I chose. In the process of studying music, everything that I learned, I was not necessarily just coming out of the classroom. A lot of it I had to do my own individual research as far as understanding the power and the effect of music in a person's life. What happened is, when I had gotten to a certain point in my life, and you know, it's very just spiritually sensitive to, you know, my calling, my destiny, whatever it is God was asking me to do, my relationship with Him. Once I start entering into that realm of my experience, even back then, I was told, now I grew up knowing or hearing that ministers have a very, very, I won't say dangerous, but deep responsibility when it comes to the people that they influence in their sermons, their lives, or whatever. Because if, God forbid, if they're lost and they, through their preaching and their teaching and their example, cause others to be lost, because their influence is so powerful and it spreads so far, that they are going to burn in hell, not only for their sins, but for the sins of every single person they have influenced to be lost, that they have led astray by error and by deception. So I always thought to myself, I would not want to be a minister because you have to deal with, you know, paying for your own sins if you lost. That's enough. And then I found out later on that being a singer, a musician, is equally as dangerous or deeply responsible as a minister, because your influence is almost the same or even more, because the power of music and what it does to the human mind and the soul is so powerful. and so deep that you will be held accountable just as much as a minister for those who you influence with the music that you sing or produce. So that kind of hit me real hard because it made sense. The power of influence. Ministers has it, and I found out that musicians too have it. And if you use it in a way that will cause people to be lost, you're gonna pay the price, not just for your own soul, but for the souls of every person that is lost because of your message and your influence. And that was like, whoa. So even before I really got serious with my relationship with God, I just had this, I guess you could call it fear. Yeah, it's a fear God that I do not want to play that role. I don't want to do that with, you know, this is as I am matriculating through Oakwood, studying music, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it, and coming to a point where I cannot use this just for money. You know, I have to consider the souls of those that I'm going to influence through my song, through my talent. So that became a big issue for me. Before I, you know, really start getting really serious with God, in my freshman year, this is backtracking a bit, rewinding a bit, got to Oakwood my first year, and by the end of that year, I had a family member of mine invited me to go on vacation to this beautiful island, which back then I didn't thought it was beautiful, but they said it was. They saw the beautiful part of this island, but this is the island of Haiti. And they were like, this particular family member was extremely rich. They were a multi-millionaire at the time, so they had access to some of the most beautiful restaurants and hotels on that island, which most people don't really see. You always see the poverty-stricken side of Haiti, but they had access to some beautiful places on that island. That's, to me, is like secret. But anyhow, yeah, because I remember when we were there, we actually went on a boat and went across the sea and went underneath this cave and through this thing and came out to this other part of the island, and there was a restaurant all up in there in that area. And I was like, why we have to go on a boat and through a cave and all this stuff to get to this restaurant? But it was quite interesting. It was beautiful. Well, while we were there, we stayed in the city of Port-au-Prince in a home that was so huge. It took, to me, back then, it seemed like it took up the whole block. That's how it seemed. It was so big. And the courtyard, there was a courtyard in the middle. The house seemed to be a perfect square. This is my perception as far as I can remember. It was like blue-green. It was painted blue-green. And the courtyard was huge. This courtyard in the middle of the house, and the house was like built in this square, and then there's a courtyard in the middle. And you can come into the courtyard through these gates. So we stayed at this house when we were visiting. And the owner of the house, which I found out later, was a very powerful voodoo priest. And I didn't know this when I first got there. I was just like thinking to myself, this man is very rich, very rich. Anyhow, while we were there, you know, we traveled, went different places and whatever, and I was enjoying it. I was also having issues with the poverty that I saw, but anyhow, coming down a bit closer to when we were leaving, I think we were there for like 3 weeks. Within the last week, like the beginning of the last week while we were there, I remember I was in my room listening to this music. I had my little Walkman back then and listening to these music and, you know, rocking and everything. And someone came in my room and they announced, oh, tonight they're planning to have a ceremony. I was like, ceremony? They were like, yeah, a voodoo ceremony. I'm like, a what? Now, even though I'm listening to bad music and I'm not spiritually where I should be, I knew that voodoo is not the thing I wanted to experience while at this place. I was like, I didn't come here for this. I thought to myself, and they were like, well, you have to be in it. You really don't have a choice. I'm like, what? So for some reasons, between this was like more in the morning time when they came and approached me. So what do they do? What goes on at this type of voodoo ceremony? What happened? So they proceeded to explain that people actually have died in these ceremonies because it becomes so demonically what's the word? It's a lot of immorality that's involved. I don't even want to get into the details of what they told me, but it's really, really bad, morally bad. And they said they play the music and all this stuff, and the music is supposed to bring up demons, and then the demons go into the people and possess the people, and then they start doing all type of atrocities. So they explain, you know, that, and I won't get into, you know, the details, but they said the main thing from what I heard, they use music to create this powerful energy and this, all the things that goes on in this thing. From what I explained to me, that music was the spearhead of the power behind what goes on. So I was like, what in the world? Anyhow, I got distracted. The day passed. Finally, it was time to go to this ceremony that was held in the courtyard. And the servants, this man had a lot of servants. They were all in the kitchen the whole day, just preparing all kind of foods. They had all type of foods that they made, breads, and they had like the way how they prepare the little goats and different things like that. You could almost pig heads and all kind of stuff. But anyhow, they had a banquet table, all these strange looking foods on the table in the courtyard. They had the chairs lined up where people had to sit in. Then they had their musicians that came in, the guys with the, I don't know what they call, Congo, whatever, they pounding those drums. They had their hired musicians. And then all this stuff that they had lined up, it was decorated. So I got there, and there was some other family members that was there with me. And I guess for some reason our family was like honored guests. It seems like the way how they lined us up in these chairs. So we were sitting in these chairs, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I felt like in a dream, like I can't believe I'm in this. I'm like, I can't believe I'm in this. And while I'm sitting there, a voice told me, go upstairs, even though this is heavy expensive, but they'll be all right. Dial New York, where your mama is. Ask her to pray for you. So I left, and I decided, okay, I need to use the restroom. Excuse me. I went up, used the restroom for real. Found me a phone. Call New York, which is like, I don't know, I can't tell you how many dollars per minute it is back then, because we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have calling cards to call international from Haiti to America. So I called my mom. I was like, Mommy, if you know, I said, you would not believe what is going on, what's happening to me. Please call Auntie D. Back then, Auntie D was a prayer warrior of the family. And I asked her to call everybody that she knew, all her friends, please pray for me. I'm in the middle of this horrible voodoo thing that I have no choice but to be there. And all this, I didn't tell her the details of what happened, because when I was about to tell her just the word voodoo ceremony, she started to catch a fit over the phone, and I had to calm her down. So I couldn't even give her any more details. So I didn't tell her anything else or what's supposed to happen. I was just like, please just calm down, just pray. I just need y'all to pray. Call everyone you know that prays and could get a prayer through to pray for me tonight. And she's like, okay, okay. So she prayed with me, and she promised me she would call all her friends, every spiritual person she knows, to pray for me. And she prayed with me. I hung up and went back, and she was like, I thought to myself, I need to be praying for myself too. So anyhow, I went back there, took my seat, and while I'm sitting there, they're passing around this bottle that looks like some type of strange wine. And we all have to drink up the same bottle. And when it came to me, a voice said, I'm like, I don't want to drink that. A voice said, you need to act like you're drinking it, but don't let it pass your mouth. So anyhow, yeah, so that's what happened. So they passed it around. And then I'm sitting there thinking to myself, while the drummers are playing, and I'm thinking, okay, now, so when they're gonna play the strange drummings that really brings up demon, what is that supposed to sound like? Because right now the sound that I'm hearing sounds familiar. You know, it's not anything that I've never heard before. I mean, I hear it in America, but it's layered with other instruments, but it doesn't sound different from what I've heard. So I sat there, I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm just going to pray. Just please cover me. I'm praying for his protection, his covering. I'm praying for him to hold back whatever it is supposed to be coming, whatever they're supposed to bring up with his music. I'm just praying. And while I'm praying, I'm seeing people coming into the place. These women, a group of them, some of them dressed in red, others dressed in white. And I'm like, I don't know. I asked my brother. When my brother was there, I was like, what does that mean? And he was going to explain it to me. I was like, nah, I don't want to hear. I don't want to know. After a while, a voice said, you don't want to know why they dressed in those colors. And I was like, nah, I don't want to hear it. Anyhow, to try to make a long story short, while I was there and I was praying, just pleading with God to be with me, pleading with God to cover us, pleading with God to just hold back the demons, just hold back. I'm like, I don't want to see and experience what was described to me. And I was just begging God to just be with me and just be with the whole situation. And I remember falling asleep praying and waking up praying, and they're still playing this music, still playing this music, still trying to get the demons to come up, and still playing. I'm like sleep. I fall asleep praying, wake up, praying, wake up. And it was like, it seemed like it started around sunset, and that's what it seemed like. I don't really remember the time. Minutes to 12, they said at 12 is when, that's when everything starts coming up. Things start happening at midnight. That was the key, right? And so I was praying. Midnight came, nothing happened. They still going at the music, going. Everybody's still dancing, waiting for that power to take over them. And still playing the music, and I kept praying, Lord Jesus, please have mercy. 1 o'clock came, 2 o'clock came, 3 o'clock came, nothing. And then finally the priest got up. He rose up with such a rage of anger, and he was just like, get out of here. Told all the people to leave, just mad, raging mad, and told them to get out of here, because nothing happened. God kept it. You know, God kept the enemy in check. And just to think, I thought to myself, well, that music sounded familiar. I was like, what's the difference? I mean, if something was supposed to happen, why didn't they play that funny music they're supposed to play? But I learned in that process that that funny music is the same music that you've been listening to all along. It's just been layered with other instruments. That's the difference. All they have is the congos, but you have that beat, that rhythm, okay? The beat and the rhythm. You have the rhythm, and then you have other instrument that's on top of it. So I We learned a lesson from that, and through this particular verse here, I'm going to explain to you how it works from what God showed me. John 4 verses 23 and 24, this is what it says. But the hour cometh that now is, and now is, when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, they were waiting for a spirit. Okay? Voodoo is a type of worship. They're worshiping demons. Okay? And it is a spirit. They were waiting for that spirit. And the music had the spirit in it to possess the people. It was supposed to call in these spirits to take over and possess them and bring such an energy of evil to do all these different things. So if God is looking for people who will worship him in spirit as well as in the truth, when you think of music, there's a professor that I daily admire that worked at Oakwood University, and she would always share that music is supernatural. Why? She says, because it touches you, but you can't touch it. It is supernatural. Music. This is not just the words. I'm talking about the instrumentation. It's a spirit. And when you think of music and the spirit that music possesses, the world knows that music is a spirit. Instrumentation is a spirit. You try to play a movie without music and tell me how much spirit would you get? The emotions. Okay, you can't express danger without music in a movie. You cannot express sensuality or say a scene of romance without music. You cannot express fear or without music. Music is spirit. The instrumentation is a spirit. And the words with God, his word is truth. But he wants us to worship him in spirit, his spirit, and in truth. So when we take the instrumentation of the world, which is a spirit, and we combine it with the truth and say, this is for worshiping God. Are we really worshiping God? Are we really seeking to worship him the way he wants to be worshipped? The Bible says God is seeking those who will worship him in spirit and truth, not us seeking him to worship him the way we want to. It's the way he wants to be worshipped. And if you remember the story, if you've ever read it, of Aaron's sons, they combine common fire with sacred in the sanctuary. And when they combine the common and the sacred, it ignite the anger of God against them, and they were consumed and they were killed when they combine in God's worship the common and the sacred. So if you take the spirit of the enemy that people actually use in Voodoo ceremonies, these beats, and you combine it with the word of God, this common and this sacred, and bring it to worship God, it's a mix that's very dangerous. God, because of our ignorance, he's been winking for a long time, but we don't know for how much how much longer he's going to wink at our ignorance when we're combining the spirit of the enemy with his truth and calling it worship. And this has been a very heavy burden for me as far as seeing God's people, how far we have gone with this. I'm not saying that we should just have dead, lifeless music with the words. I'm not saying everything should be on a European style because Europe has every nation in this world, every kindred tongue and nation, and the music they produce. Every one of these cultures have music that's originated by the enemy and music that comes from God. No one country has heavenly music of itself in comparing to any other country or race or nation or nationality. The enemy has music in every culture and every race, and God has music in every culture and every race. It's a principle that we're looking at. And God, his music is not always just dead and European sounding and just lifeless. No. In the word of God, it says that when the angels sung, the music in heaven was so powerful, it shook the pillars of heaven. It was so majestic and so powerful and so lively. But it was not the same music that people will use in Baal worship when they're worshiping demons. Okay, and they have temple prostitutes and Baal worship going on, and all these different dancing around the calf type music that they would use to promote sensuality and bring down demons and rebellion before God. You don't take that music and put it with Christian words and say it's godly. There's a difference. And it behooves us to search it out, to find out what is the difference, what it is God is really looking for us to present to him. And it doesn't have to be dead, lifeless, because God is not into lifeless, dead music either. There is a balance, a divine balance that only God can reveal to his people as far as what music is concerned and what is acceptable to him. And it's my prayer that we will earnestly search it out and let God be the one to originate what he wants, not our preference, but let him be the one to show us what is acceptable to him as far as worshiping him in spirit and in truth. That's with music. The instrumentation is the spirit. The word of truth is his truth. When you combine that in worship to God, it has to be God's way and not our way. And neither the ways, we don't need to take what the world have either to say this belongs to God, combine it with his truth and call it Christianity. So I hope that this, my testimony and what I'm sharing will be of some enlightenment to anyone that really is seeking for the truth concerning what is acceptable to God when it comes to music and spiritualism and spirituality. And that's all. Thank you. Bye.